My name is Clara Whitmore, and I was 30 years old when my grandmother left everyone in our family something valuable. Everyone except me. At least, that was what they believed. The lawyer's office was on the 7th floor of a brick building in Providence, with rain crawling down the windows and 12 members of the Whitmore family sitting around a polished table, pretending they had come to mourn. My Uncle Martin received the lake house in Vermont and $900,000. My mother received my grandmother's townhouse in Newport and $600,000. My cousin Brooke received a trust fund for her boutique real estate business. My older brother Logan received 3 vintage cars and a brokerage account. Even relatives who had not visited my grandmother in years received checks large enough to make them suddenly emotional. Then the lawyer turned to me. "To Clara Ann Whitmore," he read, "I leave the blue recipe tin from the pantry shelf with all contents enclosed." That was it. A recipe tin. Not even a house. Not an account. Not a painting. A dented blue tin with chipped paint and a faded label that said, "Butter Cookies." My cousin Brooke laughed first. She tried to cover it with a cough, but not very hard. Logan looked down at his phone and smiled. My mother closed her eyes as if she were embarrassed on my behalf. And Uncle Martin, who had already been mentally moving into the lake house, lifted his paper coffee cup toward me and said, "Well, at least you can bake your way through the grief." The room laughed. Not loudly. Worse. Comfortably. The way people laugh when they have agreed for years that you are the family disappointment and only needed one final document to confirm it. I held the tin in my lap. It was lighter than I expected. For 1 second, I wondered if Grandma Ruth had forgotten me. Then I saw the lawyer watching me. Elliot Crane was 70-something, with white hair, a navy suit, and the kind of stillness that made you feel he had already heard every lie in the room and was simply waiting for the truth to catch up. He did not smile. He did not apologize. He only said, "Mrs. Whitmore left instructions that Ms. Clara open the tin privately." My mother sighed. "Of course she did." Brooke leaned toward Logan and whispered, "Maybe it has coupons." More laughter. I stood, carrying the tin. My hands were calm. That surprised me, because my whole life, my family had told me I was too emotional, too soft, too ordinary, too unfinished. But in that room, with every person who had ever underestimated me watching, I felt one thing stronger than humiliation. I felt my grandmother's hand on the back of mine, steadying it the way she had when I was 12 and learning to roll pie crust. So I walked out before anyone could see me open it. In the parking garage, sitting in my 9-year-old Subaru while rain drummed on the roof, I lifted the lid. Inside were no recipes, no cookies, no money. Just an old brass key, a folded slip of paper, and one line in my grandmother's handwriting. "When they laugh, go to the greenhouse."
Really?
Before I tell you what was inside that greenhouse, I need you to know who my grandmother was. Ruth Whitmore was not the soft kind of grandmother people write on greeting cards. She was small, sharp, and impossible to impress. She wore gardening gloves until the leather split. She made soup without measuring. She could identify a plant disease from 6 feet away and a liar from across a dinner table. She built Whitmore Garden Supply with my grandfather in 1979, back when it was 1 rented storefront, 2 pickup trucks, and a hand-painted sign. By the time she was 75, Whitmore Garden Supply had become 8 retail stores, a wholesale nursery, landscaping contracts across 3 states, and a reputation for knowing exactly what survived New England winters. My grandfather died when I was 10. Everyone expected Ruth to sell. She did not. She learned the accounts, fired a manager who had been stealing, negotiated with suppliers who called her sweetheart until she made them regret it, and built the company into something worth more than anyone in our family liked to admit out loud. But to me, she was the person who picked me up from middle school when my mother forgot. The person who gave me a shelf in her greenhouse and said, "Everything living needs a place to begin." The person who never once asked why I was not more like Brooke. Brooke was my cousin, Uncle Martin's daughter. Perfect Brooke. Brownstone apartment in Boston. Business degree. Engagement ring big enough to require its own insurance policy. She posted photos of coffee on marble counters and called it building a brand. My brother Logan was the golden son. He worked in finance, which in my mother's social circle meant he could say things nobody understood and still be considered successful. I was the one who came home from Rhode Island College after my second year because Grandma Ruth fell on ice and broke her hip. That was the year everyone promised they would rotate visits. My mother made a spreadsheet. Uncle Martin said he would handle medical appointments. Logan said he would drive down every other weekend. Brooke said she would support from afar, which meant sending a succulent arrangement with a card someone else wrote. Within 3 weeks, the spreadsheet was dead. Within 2 months, I was living in Grandma Ruth's guest room, waking up at 6 to manage her medication, driving her to physical therapy, helping her into the shower, learning how to submit insurance paperwork, and taking night shifts at a garden center to pay my own bills. I told myself it was temporary. 1 semester off. Then 2. Then the scholarship expired. Then Grandma needed a second surgery. Then the company controller quit, and Ruth asked if I could help enter invoices because my hands were faster than hers. I never went back to school. My mother called it losing momentum. Uncle Martin called it lack of ambition. Brooke called it kind of sad. Grandma Ruth called it showing up. Those 2 words were the closest she came to praise. Showing up. She said it when I learned payroll. She said it when I drove through a snowstorm to bring her compression socks from the medical supply store. She said it when I found a bookkeeping error that saved the company $14,000. She said it when I sat beside her hospital bed at 3 a.m. and read seed catalogs out loud because the pain medication made her anxious and plant names calmed her. Hydrangea, foxglove, bee balm, black-eyed Susan. Showing up. To the rest of my family, I was still the girl who never finished college and worked with potting soil under her fingernails. To Ruth, I was the only person who stayed after the sympathy casseroles stopped coming. The will reading happened 3 weeks after her funeral. Not the day after, not the week after. Ruth had planned even the timing. I know that now. At the time, all I knew was that my mother called me at 7:18 in the morning and said, "Wear something structured. Not black. Not appropriate. Structured." As if fabric could compensate for whatever she thought was lacking in me. Her name is Elaine Whitmore, and she has spent her entire life believing reputation is a form of nutrition. She can live on it for months. She had married my father young, divorced him quietly, and spent the next 25 years making sure nobody in Newport society thought she had been abandoned. She did this by controlling everything she could touch: hair, posture, stationery, table settings. The way her children were described, Logan was in financial strategy. I was still figuring things out. Uncle Martin was Ruth's oldest son and the loudest person in any room where money might be discussed. He had worked inside Whitmore Garden Supply for 15 years, mostly in a title he invented himself: Director of Expansion Strategy. Ruth once told me, "Martin expands expense reports." I thought she was joking. She was not. Martin believed the company should have been his years ago. He said this at every holiday after his third drink. "Mom built it, sure," he would say, "but I understand scale." Ruth would look at him over her glasses. "Then scale your bar tab down." Brooke inherited Martin's confidence and none of Ruth's tolerance. She treated me like a family employee who had been allowed to sit at the table because there were extra chairs. At Thanksgiving the year before, Ruth died. Brooke announced she had closed a seed round investment for her curated home botanicals platform, which was essentially expensive potted plants delivered with handwritten cards. Everyone clapped. Then my mother said, "Clara is still helping at the nursery." Helping? I managed inventory for the wholesale greenhouse. I coordinated seasonal staffing. I handled vendor invoices. I knew which stores were underperforming and which suppliers were padding freight costs. But helping sounded softer. Smaller. Temporary. Brooke smiled and said, "That's so sweet. Some people are just happiest close to the dirt." Everyone laughed. Grandma Ruth did not. She tapped her fork once against her plate. "Dirt is where everything honest starts," she said. The table quieted. "Later, in the greenhouse." She handed me a pair of pruning shears and said, "Never let polished people convince you roots are embarrassing." That was Ruth. She rarely comforted you. She armed you. After the will reading, I drove straight to Ruth's house. The house sat at the edge of Bristol, Rhode Island, on 4 acres that smelled like salt air, damp soil, and old cedar. My mother had already started calling it the property, which is how I knew she planned to sell it. The greenhouse stood behind the house, beyond the herb garden, and the stone bird bath Ruth hated because my grandfather bought it from a catalog, and she said birds deserved better architecture. It was not a pretty Instagram greenhouse. It was old. Iron frame, glass panels clouded at the edges, a sliding door that stuck in summer and froze in winter. Inside, rows of benches held clay pots, seed trays, old labels, tools, burlap sacks, a potting table, and the smell of living things waiting. I stood outside in the rain with the brass key in my hand. The blue tin was tucked under my arm. "When they laugh, go to the greenhouse." I unlocked the door. It opened with a sound like a sigh. The key did not fit the door. The door had never needed a key. I stood there, confused, dripping rain onto the brick floor. Then I saw it. Under Ruth's potting bench was an old metal cabinet I had seen 100 times and never opened because Ruth kept fertilizer records in it, or so I thought. The brass key fit the cabinet. Inside were 3 shelves. Top shelf, labeled seed packets. Middle shelf, old notebooks. Bottom shelf, a sealed leather binder, and a phone. Not a smartphone. A simple flip phone, charged, with a sticky note attached. Press 1. I stared at it for a full minute. Then I pressed 1. The call connected on the second ring. A woman answered. Clara Whitmore? Yes. My name is Marin Holt. I have been waiting for you to call. Who are you? I am the trustee of the Whitmore Living Trust. Your grandmother appointed me 19 years ago. The greenhouse suddenly felt too small. I think I need to sit down. That would be wise, Marin said. There is a lot your family does not know. Marin Holt's office was in Providence, above a marine insurance agency, and below a dentist who apparently believed drilling began at 8:01. She was in her early 60s, black, elegant, and direct in the way people become when they have no time left for fools. On her wall was a framed photograph of Ruth standing in front of the original Whitmore Garden Supply storefront, one hand on her hip, looking like she was about to charge rent to the photographer. Your grandmother came to me in 2004, Marin said, opening a leather binder identical to the one in the greenhouse cabinet. She wanted to separate the company from the family before the family confused inheritance with entitlement. That sounded like Ruth. Marin slid a document toward me. The Whitmore Living Trust owns 82% of Whitmore Garden Supply Holdings. That includes the retail stores, wholesale nursery, landscaping contracts, distribution agreements, and the Bristol property where the original greenhouse sits. I blinked. But Uncle Martin works for the company. He was employed by the company. He never owned it. My mother got the townhouse. Yes. And the lake house, the accounts, the cars. Probate assets, personal property, gifts Ruth chose to distribute publicly. Publicly? Marin looked at me over her glasses. Your grandmother understood performance. She knew your family would reveal themselves at the will reading. She wanted you to see them before you decided whether to accept responsibility for what actually mattered. I looked down at my hands. They still had soil under one fingernail. What responsibility? Marin turned a page. You are the sole successor beneficiary of the trust. The words did not land at first. Then they landed all at once. I own the company? If you accept trusteeship and beneficial control, yes. Operationally, there are structures in place. The current interim CEO, Angela Reyes, has been instructed to remain for 12 months to train you. Ruth did not expect you to know everything. She expected you to learn. I stared at the binder. What is it worth? Marin paused. Based on current valuation, just under $41 million. The dentist upstairs started drilling. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because the world had kept being ordinary while mine split open. Marin continued. There are conditions. Of course there are. She almost smiled. Ruth required that you call within 30 days of receiving the tin. If you did not, the trust would transfer to a land conservancy and employee ownership foundation. If I threw away the tin, then your family would keep what they received in the will, and the company would leave the family entirely. Ruth had built a test inside a gift everyone else thought was a joke. I closed my eyes. There was more. I could feel it. There is a no contest provision, Marin said. Any beneficiary of the will who challenges the trust risks suspension of their probate distribution until final resolution. Ruth also commissioned capacity evaluations in 2004, 2014, and 6 months before her death. They will say she was confused. They can say what they like. The record is prepared. I opened my eyes. Why did she not tell me? Marin's face softened. Because she wanted you to choose without being bribed by certainty. Then she handed me a cream envelope. Ruth's handwriting. Clara, this can only be opened if you accept, Marin said. I did not open it. Not yet. I took the binder home. I slept badly. At 6 the next morning, I drove to the greenhouse and stood among Ruth's empty seed trays. Then I signed. The family meeting happened 3 days later. I did not call it. Marin did. Official notice from council carries a different smell than a text from a cousin. Everyone arrived at Ruth's house at 2 on Saturday. My mother came first, wearing black linen and wounded dignity. Uncle Martin came with 2 binders of his own, because men like Martin believe paper becomes authority if you slap it hard enough on a table. Brooke arrived in sunglasses and a cream coat. Logan came late, looking annoyed that money had become inconvenient. Several cousins came because gossip tastes better in person. Elliot Crane, the estate attorney from the will reading, stood near the fireplace. Marin Holt stood beside the dining table with her leather binder. I stood by the window facing the greenhouse. My mother looked at me. You look pale. I am fine. You should have told us what was in that tin. You laughed at it. Her mouth tightened. Martin cut in. Let's not get emotional. We all know why we're here. If Mom left Clara anything related to the company, we need to evaluate whether Clara is fit to handle it. Brooke murmured, finally. Marin opened the binder. Mrs. Ruth Whitmore established the Whitmore Living Trust in 2004. The trust owns 82% of Whitmore Garden Supply holdings and related assets. This includes controlling interest in the operating company, the wholesale nursery, the Bristol property, and associated long-term investment accounts. Martin leaned forward. What are you talking about? The company is part of the estate. No, Mr. Whitmore, it is not. The room shifted. Marin continued. Ruth Whitmore transferred controlling shares into the trust 19 years ago. The trust is irrevocable. It does not pass through probate. It is not affected by the will read earlier this week. Logan looked up from his phone. Brooke stopped smiling. My mother said, "Who is the beneficiary?" Marin looked at me. Clara Ann Whitmore. I did not move. That was important. For once, I wanted them to be the ones moving around me. Martin stood so fast his chair hit the wall. Absolutely not. Marin did not blink. Ms. Whitmore accepted trusteeship and beneficial control yesterday morning. The transfer provisions are active. Brooke's mouth fell open. She runs a garden center. Correction, Marin said. She has managed wholesale inventory, vendor accounts, seasonal staffing, and operational reporting for Whitmore Garden Supply for 9 years. Brooke flushed. My mother looked at me like I had stolen something. You kept this from us. I found out after the will reading. Then you should have called me immediately. Why? The question was simple. It stopped her. I continued. You told me Grandma left me the tin because I could not handle real money. You laughed before you asked whether I was hurt." My mother's face went rigid. Martin pointed at Marin. "We will challenge this. My mother had cognitive decline. She was 91. Elliot Crane stepped forward for the first time. Ruth Whitmore completed independent capacity evaluations in 2004, 2014, and last August. All confirmed testamentary and contractual capacity. The trust also contains a no-contest clause connected to probate distributions." Martin's eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" Marin answered, "If you challenge the trust, your distribution under the will may be suspended until final judgment. That includes the lake house and cash award." Brooke said, "That could take years." "Correct." Martin looked at her. She looked away. Logan finally spoke. "How much?" No one asked what Grandma wanted. No one asked why. "Just how much?" Marin said. "Current valuation is approximately $41 million. The room went silent. Not quiet. Silent. The kind of silence that has weight. My mother sat down slowly. Brooke whispered, "41 million?" Martin's face changed. He had arrived angry. Now he looked hungry and afraid at the same time. "That company exists because I built expansion strategy," he said. Angela Reyes entered then. No one had heard the front door. She was 50, compact, with dark hair pulled back and a folder under one arm. I knew her from company meetings as the person who asked the questions Martin hated. "Martin," she said, "the last 3 expansion proposals you submitted lost money on paper before they reached Ruth's desk." His face went red. "You do not speak to me that way." "I am the interim CEO," Angela said. "I speak to unprofitable ideas however I like." For one perfect second, I heard Ruth's laugh in my head. Angela turned to me. "Clara, whenever you are ready, we can begin Monday." Martin looked at me. Really looked not like the family dropout, not like the girl with dirt under her nails, like a locked door he had assumed would open and had just heard bolt from the other side. I said, "Monday works." After the meeting, the family scattered into smaller storms. Brooke left first. No dramatic exit. No insult. Just a stiff walk to her car, phone already at her ear, probably calling someone to ask whether trusts could be attacked if the beneficiary wore thrift store shoes. Logan asked if we could talk privately. I said no. That surprised both of us. Martin stayed in the dining room, rereading documents he did not understand. My mother went into the kitchen. I found her standing at the sink, looking out at the greenhouse. Her reflection in the window looked older than she wanted anyone to know. "You humiliated me," she said. I leaned against the doorway. "No, Grandma did not choose you. That is different." She turned. "I am your mother." "I know." "Then why did she choose you?" There it was. The real question. Not legal. Not financial. Moral. I could have softened it. I did not. Because when she fell, I came. My mother closed her eyes. I had responsibilities. So did I. You were young. You could afford to pause your life. I did not pause it. I changed it. She opened her eyes, and for a second, I saw not Elaine Whitmore with her posture and her reputation, but a woman who had rewritten her daughter's sacrifice as failure because admitting the truth would have required gratitude. Gratitude would have meant debt. My mother hated debt. "Clara," she said quietly, "I did not know she saw it that way." "Yes, you did. You just hoped I did not." She flinched. I almost apologized. Then I remembered Ruth's letter, still unopened in my bag. "Take care of yourself first." I imagined it saying, though I did not know yet. I left my mother in the kitchen. For once, she could sit with something I did not carry for her. Monday morning, I walked into Whitmore Garden Supply Holdings headquarters at 7:30. The building sat behind Store 1, the original location. It was not glamorous. Brick, green trim, a loading dock, a row of offices above the wholesale floor, and the smell of mulch that had seeped permanently into the walls. Angela met me at the back entrance with 2 coffees. "I do not know how you take it." "Black." "Good. We can work with that." She handed me a thick binder. "First rule, do not let anyone tell you leadership is performance. Leadership is follow-through." "I am scared," I said. "Good. Scared people check numbers twice." We spent the day in conference rooms. Retail performance. Wholesale margins. Seasonal labor. Vendor contracts. Land holdings. Insurance. Pending litigation. Employee benefits. Angela did not explain things like I was stupid. She explained things like I was new. There is a difference, and it saved me. At noon, we walked the greenhouse facilities. The wholesale staff stared politely. Most of them knew me. I had worked beside them in summer heat, unloaded trucks, rewritten purchase orders, fixed irrigation timers with zip ties and prayer. Pete, the propagation manager, came over wiping his hands on his jeans. "Heard you got the keys," he said. "Something like that." He nodded toward a row of struggling lavender starts. "Your grandmother would have hated how these look. She would have called them dramatic and threatened to compost them." Pete grinned. "You'll do." That meant more than Brooke's apology ever would. The first crisis arrived at 4:12. Martin had emailed 3 department heads, instructing them not to accept major changes from me until ownership matters were resolved. Angela printed the email and placed it on the table. Decision? My first instinct was panic. My second was anger. My third, the one I used, sounded like Ruth. If I forward it to Marin, issue a formal memo from Legal Clarifying Governance. Then remove Martin's internal access until HR reviews his role. Angela's face did not change, but something approving flickered in her eyes. Good. That was the first day. No throne. No applause. Just one problem after another, and the strange discovery that I could answer some of them. The family reacted the way people react when the person they dismiss starts holding keys. Badly. Martin filed a petition claiming undue influence and diminished capacity. Marin responded with medical evaluations, trust documents, historical records, and correspondence from Ruth so precise, it felt like she had written from beyond the grave with a red pen. The judge declined emergency relief. The no contest clause froze Martin's lake house and cash distribution pending review. His wife called my mother crying. My mother called me. Can't you make an exception? No. He is your uncle. He tried to invalidate the woman who raised me. She was his mother. Then he should have listened to her. That ended the call. Brooke did not sue. Brooke calculated. 2 weeks after the meeting, she asked to pitch her boutique plant delivery platform as a vendor partner for Whitmore Garden Supply. I did not laugh. I wanted to. Instead, I sent her to Angela. Standard vendor process, I said. Brooke stared at me through the video call. You are making me apply? Yes. I am family. I know. That is why you are getting the same rules as everyone else. Her first pitch was terrible. Pretty slides. No logistics plan. No profit margin clarity. No answer to Angela's question about dead-on-arrival plant replacement rates. Angela rejected it. Brooke called me furious. You enjoyed that? No, but I did enjoy the numbers being honest. She hung up. 3 months later, she submitted a revised proposal. Smaller, smarter, less glossy. It was accepted for a limited pilot in 2 stores. That was the first real thing Brooke had built without leaning on charm. I did not tell her I was proud. Not yet. Some words need roots before they are planted. Logan asked for an advisory seat. I asked what he would advise on. He said capital strategy. I asked him to send a written proposal. He never did. My mother visited headquarters once. She wore a cream coat and looked around like she was touring a museum dedicated to a version of me she had not planned to meet. At the end of the visit, she said, "Your grandmother would be pleased." I said, "She expected it." That made my mother cry in the parking lot. I did not comfort her. Not because I was cruel, because for once, the tears were not mine to manage. 6 months after Ruth died, Angela handed me a folder labeled Harbor House. What is this? Project Ruth shelved in 2021 after Martin called it sentimental nonsense. Inside were plans for a workforce housing development on company-owned land near Fall River. 48 units. Affordable rents for nursery workers, teachers, hospital staff, retail managers. The kind of people my family smiled at, but rarely noticed. Ruth had written on the cover in blue ink, "People who grow things should be able to live near what they grow." I ran my fingers over the words. How much capital? She's $6 million to build correctly. Lower profit margin than luxury landscaping contracts, but sustainable. Why did Martin kill it? No bragging rights? I looked at Angela. Can we do it? Yes. Then we do it. Angela almost smiled. Ruth said you would say that. The project changed me more than the trust did. Money can make people obey you. Purpose makes you obey yourself. I walked the Harbor House site in October with mud on my boots and Ruth's old measuring tape in my coat pocket. The land was rough. Weeds, broken fencing, a rusted gate, gulls circling from the water. But I could see it. A courtyard. Raised beds. Laundry rooms with windows. Apartments with enough light for houseplants. People coming home from work to a place that did not punish them for not being rich. Pete stood beside me, hands in his jacket pockets. Your grandmother bought this parcel quietly, he said. Told me not to tell Martin. Why you? She said I knew how to keep my mouth shut and my eyes open. That sounded like Ruth, too. We broke ground in December. No press release. No ribbon. Just machines moving earth and a small sign that said, Harbor House, a Whitmore Garden Supply Community Project. My mother saw the sign online and texted, Your grandmother would have liked the name. I wrote back, I know. It was the first civil exchange we had managed in months. Martin's lawsuit collapsed in January. His attorney advised withdrawal after the court reviewed Ruth's capacity evaluations and the trust timeline. The no-contest freeze had already cost him dearly. The lake house sale he had planned could not proceed. His cash distribution was locked. His legal bills were not. He called me on a Tuesday. I was in Ruth's old office, reviewing snow removal budgets. His voice sounded smaller than I remembered. I dropped it. I heard. My lawyer said there is no path. No. Silence. Then, I need work. I leaned back. There it was. The circle closing. The man who said I had no seat at the table asking for one. What kind of work? You know my experience. I also know your expense reports. He went quiet. Ruth had been right about those too. Angela's review found years of inflated mileage, duplicate meals, consulting fees to friends, and a storage contract with a company owned by Martin's brother-in-law. Not enough to destroy the company. Enough to tell the truth about his version of leadership. I can repay, he said. You will. I cannot repay all at once. I know. You would do that to family? No, I said. Family is why I am offering a repayment plan instead of a referral for criminal review. His breathing changed. For the first time, Martin understood restraint as a gift. If you want to work with Whitmore again, you apply for an open regional operations role. No title above the role, no private expense approvals, 90-day review. Angela supervises. You are putting me under Angela? Yes. He laughed once, bitter, then stopped. Your grandmother would have. Yes. He exhaled. Send me the application. I did. He applied. He interviewed badly, then better. Angela recommended a 6-month contract role, not full employment. Martin accepted. That was not forgiveness. That was governance. I have learned the difference. On the first anniversary of the will reading, we gathered at Ruth's house. Not everyone came. Logan said he had a client trip. No one believed him. Brooke came with a tray of lemon bars and no sunglasses. Martin came alone. My mother arrived early and helped set the table without making a speech. Aunt Lillian brought a stack of old books Ruth had given her over the years, each with dried leaves pressed between pages. We ate in the dining room where they had once laughed about the blue tin. I placed the tin in the center of the table, not as decoration, as witness. Nobody mentioned it at first. Then Brooke said quietly, I am sorry, I laughed. The room stopped. She looked at me. At the lawyer's office, I thought. I do not know what I thought. I wanted you to be small because I was afraid of what it meant if you were not. That was the most honest thing Brooke had ever said to me. I nodded. Thank you. Martin stared at his plate. My mother pressed her napkin to her mouth. Later, after dinner, I went to the greenhouse. The cabinet was empty now except for seed packets and Ruth's notebooks. I had moved the trust binder to a safe. The flip phone sat on my desk at work, dead now, though I kept it because some objects are not useful and still matter. I sat on Ruth's stool and finally opened the cream envelope Marin had given me. I had waited a year, not because I forgot, because some letters need you to become ready. Inside was one page. Clara, if you are reading this, you called. Good. I knew they would laugh. I am sorry for that, but I needed you to know the shape of the room before you accepted the weight of what I built. Money makes love noisy and truth quiet. Listen for the quiet. You gave me time when nobody else wanted the inconvenience. You learned the company from the bottom shelf up. You know which employees have bad knees, which suppliers lie about freight, which customers pay late because they are struggling, and which pay late because they can. That is leadership. Not a degree. Not a loud voice. Not the family name. Do not become hard just because they were cruel. Hard things break. Rooted things hold. Use the company to grow something that outlives our pride. And Clara, keep the greenhouse. Everything living needs a place to begin. Ruth. I read it twice, then a third time. Rain ticked softly against the glass roof. From the house, I could hear voices. Not perfect voices. Not healed voices. Just family trying, badly and honestly, to learn where they stood. I folded the letter and held it against my chest. For years, I had thought my life had stalled when I left school to care for Ruth. But that was only the story my family told because it made my sacrifice look like failure. The truth was simpler. I had not fallen behind. I had been planted. A year and a half later, Harbor House opened. 48 apartments. A courtyard with raised garden beds. A community room with south-facing windows. A child care partnership with the clinic 2 streets over. We invited employees first, then local teachers, then hospital staff, then anyone who qualified under the income guidelines. At the opening, Angela handed me a small pair of ceremonial scissors. Ribbon, she said. I hate ribbons. Ruth hated ribbons. Then why are we doing one? Because the mayor likes photos. We cut the ribbon. The mayor spoke. Angela spoke. Pete cried and pretended he had allergies. My mother stood near the back. Brooke took photos for the company page without making herself the center of them. Martin, now in his contract role, checked parking logistics and did not complain once. After the speeches, a woman named Tessa approached me. She worked in store 3. Single mother, 2 kids. She had gotten one of the apartments. I just wanted to say thank you, she said. I used to drive an hour each way. Now my children can stay in the same school district. I thought of Ruth's note. Use the company to grow something that outlives our pride. I said, I am glad you are home. That night, I drove to the greenhouse alone. I placed the blue recipe tin on the potting bench. Inside it now were 3 things. The original brass key. Ruth's letter. A new note from me. For whoever comes next, read every page. Ask who showed up, and never confuse laughter with truth. I do not know who that person will be. Maybe I will never need to choose. Maybe someday I will. But if Ruth taught me anything, It is that inheritance is not what lands in your lap at a lawyer's table. It is what you are willing to carry after everyone else leaves. If there is one thing I want you to take from my story, it is this. Do not let people who only see your missing credentials tell you that you are missing value. Some people measure worth by degrees, titles, bank accounts, and who laughs loudest at the table. But life measures differently. It measures who comes when there is no applause, who stays when care becomes inconvenient, who learns the unglamorous work no one posts about, who keeps showing up long after the audience has gone home. My family thought my grandmother left me a cookie tin because I was the least important person in the room. They were wrong. She left me a key, not just to a cabinet, not just to a trust, to the truth. And the truth was this: I had not been forgotten. I had been tested. And when I picked up the phone, I finally understood what Grandma Ruth had known for years. The person they called ordinary was the only one rooted deep enough to hold the whole thing.